Hey guys, so we hosted an awesome webinar a couple weeks back talking about how ETF issuers can leverage the Logically platform and the same tools that our advisor clients use for their efforts in terms of ETF distribution and sales. So we wanted to adapt that webinar into a video. So today, me and Lindsay Toole. Hey Lindsay, how are you doing?
Hey, doing well. Thanks y'all for joining.
Yeah, so we're going to run through the platform, how ETF issuers can leverage it. But before I do that, Lindsay, why don't you just give us a little bit of background on you, how you got into ETF Logic?
Sure. So I was an ETF salesperson myself at an issuer for several years. I found that I was spending a lot of time running kind of ad hoc analysis when a client would, request maybe to see, one of the ETFs I was selling compared to, one of the competitors. Um, or how an ETF would fit into their existing portfolio, and spending a lot of time with different platforms, or trying to run analysis internally, and not spending as much time on sales. So when the founders Emil and Dan came to me with this idea of ETF Logic, kind of an all-in-one analytics platform for issuer salespeople and issuer marketing and product strategy type folks to help position their products, it made a lot of sense. So I jumped ship to help build this several years ago now, and excited to show you guys today how I would have used this platform had I had it back in my days of selling ETFs.
Awesome. Yeah, so like you said, big background selling ETFs, right? At ProShares. What are some of the pain points back in those days that you ran into when it came down to analytics or a lack of analytics?
Yeah, and I think I kind of touched on that before, but I was spending just too much time not actually focusing on building the relationships and growing the assets and the sales. I was spending more time kind of you know working internally to find the right pieces to answer a question, or spending time downloading stuff on Bloomberg and putting it together. And having a tool like the ETF Logically platform would have been extremely helpful.
Awesome. So when we've been talking to our advisor clients, it seems like there's really three main questions that they have when it comes down to ETFs, right? Number one being, how can I compare ETFs to comparable peer group names, both, within the same peer group and then also, within other peer groups or investment teams. Number two is, an ETF might not trade a lot on screen. How much are you really able to trade or pick up of that particular ETF? And then number three, the biggest question obviously is, how do ETFs fit within my portfolios? Maybe you can run us down how you would use that platform to answer each one of those questions.
Okay, yeah, that's a great idea. So let me switch over and jump onto the platform here. So I'll start with the first question, and let's just assume you don't have a set two ETFs in mind that you want to compare. Just to show you guys more functionality of the platform, I'm going to just assume that we don't know which two ETFs we want to compare. But let's say we know we're looking at U.S. equity, ESG ETFs maybe, and what I did right here, I went to our screener tool. So some of you guys might remember this is kind of our predefined or basic screener tool. These are the different peer groups that we classify, and then of course you can drill down within each one of the buckets. But in this case, we've added a detailed screener functionality. So there are so many ways that you can kind of sift through this universe. To note, the platform's fully global now, so any ETF, ETN, UCITS, etc., listed anywhere in the globe is available on our platform now. And so if I go into the detailed, there are several different ways to search now for ETFs. So let's say you knew which ETFs, you could just type in the tickers here. You could say, I only want ETFs that follow a benchmark provided by MSCI or Bloomberg, etc. So you could filter by benchmark. You could filter the universe by issuer. Say we only want to see, ETFs by ProShares. You could do it that way. There's also quant stats. If you wanted to, filter the universe by certain thresholds of, volatility or momentum, you can do that. Same with returns and flows. In the general bucket, there's quite a few options. And so for the purposes of today, we want to look at equity, ETFs that are listed in the US, US dollar. You can even say, say you only wanted to see funds with a certain AUM, you can toggle here or, set the filter. Let's say we only want to see funds less than 1%. We'll get somewhere close to that. And we were going to look at ESG. So in here, there's a lot of tags. So you could basically type anything in this search bar up above. I can type ESG and bring up all the ESG ETFs. In this case, I just want to show you through this screener functionality. So I'll select ESG. First, let me show you some of these different tabs that we have. So obviously here at the start, you can see just the basics, the NAV, shares outstanding, expense ratio, AUM. Across all of these, everything is downloadable to Excel. You can look at things like, volume across all of these different ETFs, and we could look at ESG. So because these are ESG funds, let's see what their ESG rankings are. And we have this ESG analysis for all funds, not just ESG funds. But what we're doing here, we use a company called Arabesque, and they give individual scores to single stocks or to companies, basically based on their governance and social and environmental behaviors. And then we take those individuals' scores and we percolate them up to the ETF level. So there's things like, the human rights score, the labor rights. But let's just sort maybe on the global compact overall score, and we'll pick 2 ETFs with, let's say, the highest ESG scoring. Okay, yeah, let's see. So we have Wisdom Tree's RESD, and we have DWS X Trackers EASG. So from here, there's 3 buttons here. There's 4 options. You can analyze, which I'll show you guys later. It pulls it into a portfolio analysis tool. You can compare side by side, which is what we'll do. Now you can create watch list here. View all listings means anywhere else that this ETF is listed. So let's go to compare. So we're going to do RESD to EASG. So the starting portfolio was RESD, and then we'll add in EASG. So with this functionality, you can, it's built for portfolios, so you can add as many tickers as you wanted, so you can compare portfolios. If you, didn't want to manually input, you could upload portfolios through like a CSV file with the ticker and the notional of the ticker and the percent. We also have integrations for advisors that they can pull in their clients' accounts from different custodians directly into this tool. But for purposes today and for issuers using this tool, so let's say you're a Wisdom Tree salesperson and you want to show, why yours is better than DWS, or your DWS person want to show why yours is better or has different advantages than the RESD. Here you go, side by side. We hit apply. Okay. Here we go, quick side by side. So it looks like you can take out this benchmark here, but the tool has the functionality to set your own custom benchmark. But in this case, let's just look at these side by side. So it looks like the Wisdom Tree one has outperformed as of recent, but they're pretty similar. You can see it looks like the Wisdom Tree RESD has more industrials, more healthcare. And table format, look at draw down, and of course the risk overview. Again, it has a default to a 60-40 benchmark, but that can be changed. And To note here, everything here is you can download it to a PDF and you can customize it for your clients. So if you didn't want to show all of those grids, maybe you only want to show a few, you can select what you want to show. You can customize with your logo.
Yeah, that seems like a great feature. I love the customization of the reports. I also have some advisors I noticed that use that extra little blank space on the first page to put any extra disclaimers that they need. So again, issuers can probably do the same thing as well. So that kind of covers how you can use the platform to do, peer comparisons, right? The second question we had, right, is about liquidity. And I think it's a topic that a lot of advisors struggle with, right? They just see the volumes on screen and they don't really understand that you can leverage the underlying. So, how, as an ETF issuer, would you use the Logically platform to help explain that it goes a little bit further than just volume?
Yeah, for sure. So that is one of our most popular tools for issuers, and actually the first tool that we built, over 3 years ago now, working with a lot of issuers, capital markets desk, and our founder was a former ETF market maker, and so we wanted to make something easy and an unbiased estimate of the actual true liquidity of an ETF, looking at the basket. So in this case, I just have an ETF in mind that I know doesn't trade much on screen. Um, so it's one of my favorites, ticker symbol SHE for gender diversity, State Street ETF. And so it only trades about 6,000 on ADV on screen, but you know we have different functionalities here, right? You can select this is what the impact cost is to the basket that you're willing to take. In this case, it's a US ETF, so 10 bips is probably fair. You can change the amount or frequency that you're going to trade here. We'll keep it at 10%. And SHE, she comes at a 5-star true liquidity score. And we're saying you can actually pick up close to 1 million shares of this ETF. And this is by looking at the underlying and going into, we're doing an impact cost model on each one of the individuals.
Awesome. And so, so how does something like this compare to probably something a lot of ETF issuers use, which is the ETFL function on a Bloomberg terminal?
Yeah, that's true. So the ETFL function, this is kind of technically this number here, and basic implied liquidity, but it's a much more conservative approach. So basically, they just say how many shares you can get while being no more than 25% of the 20-day ADV of any security in the within the basket. So it's assuming a much more conservative approach, and that's why you see this number versus what we're saying, looking at the impact cost model and each individual constituent. We're saying closer to 1 million shares.
Excellent. So the third question we talked about, right, was how do your ETFs fit into my portfolios? So obviously, portfolio analysis is the advisor favorite tool, right? And there's so much to break down within that. Almost every grid is basically its own piece of software. Let's talk about how ETF issuers can leverage those same tools when they're talking to advisors and trying to communicate the value that their ETFs add to a well diversified portfolio.
Sure. Okay, that is a great question, and something we can show here on the portfolio analysis tool. As I mentioned earlier in the side by side, there are several ways to pull in a portfolio. Right, you can upload one with a CSV. We're integrated with several custodians to pull in client accounts. You could also pull from our model marketplace, which we'll show you later, or you can just manually input a portfolio here. I have some loaded here, and for just simplicity purposes for right now, let's just do an easy SPY Ag 60/40 portfolio. So when we hit apply, you're going to see several metrics, again, diving deeper into the portfolio on risk and cost and performance and factors, etc. Okay, so from a high level, it's 20% volatility, um, average weighted expense of 7.3. So let's see now if we were to, let's say I'm a wisdom tree salesperson and I want to communicate maybe switching some of the SPY exposure into one of their funds. I think it's their one of their equity leaders funds. It's PLAT. So let's say PLAT, or it's like a growth leaders fund. So it's done quite well this year. And let's take 10% out of SPY. So we'll knock that down to 50, and we'll bring SPY to 10, and we'll hit apply here. And here, look, okay, performance up, 3% just by adding, switching some of that SPY exposure into Plat. Actually, the volatility is down slightly too, and the expense ratio is up just a tad, but clearly overcompensated here. And then you can go into the more details, obviously, of the portfolio, and you could compare back to just the starting portfolio. So here in actions, we could go into compare and just pull back in the SPY AGG alone without Plat. I just wanted to change this name to say Plat so we know the difference in the when we look at the breakdowns. So then you can see side by side the different exposures that you're getting from adding Plat or from adding Plat to the portfolio. And obviously your portfolios are going to be more complex than this. But again, for purposes of today, just wanted to show you, how you could potentially use this as a sales tool. And what's great is that you can do this on the fly in a meeting, over Zoom, or if you do go back to in-person meetings, you can bring your laptop or iPad and pull it up and just show it on the fly. So it gives a lot of credibility, and it's not coming from you, the issuer, it's coming from a third party. So that's also helpful in any type of sell. So again, we just went back into that side-by-side tool just so we can see some of the differences when we added Plat. Yeah, it looks like, it increased the IT exposure and the communication services, which makes sense because the platform is their growth leaders, so it's a lot of these new tech companies. We also break down the fixed income by different types and maturities. Yeah, so there's a lot there. I hope that helped show you a little bit how you can use the portfolio analysis tool, which we know that advisors are really gravitating to.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that was a great recap of some of the high uh, main use cases of how to leverage the platform. Right? There's obviously many more, given the depth that we dive into all the different tools. Right? But for ETF issuers, why don't we talk a little bit about how it works getting involved with us?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Scott. So, besides just the subscription-based platform that you saw today, logically, we do a lot of customization work for issuers. So each one of the tools that you saw, it's an API, and it can be easily integrated into the issuer's look and feel of their website. So white labeled, you can select which tools you want. We can even incorporate certain data points that you may have, such as maybe you have a different definition of certain factors than we do. So we could feed that into our factor analysis very easily. Just plug it in, and then we could customize it for your website, or we can make actual custom versions of this platform itself for you if you wanted to, as an issuer, if you wanted to license it to a set group of advisors, kind of as your name and your brand. We could do that as well, where it's you could select which tools you wanted available for your advisors, and then your funds could be highlighted, right? Your ETFs could come up first, but of course it would still be unbiased and include the entire universe. But that's another way that we work with issuers. We also do a lot of the 60/11 website disclosure work. As the December 23rd is coming up, all ETFs have to be compliant under that rule, which requires some additional website disclosures, such as median 30-day premium discount. Those things we're feeding into a lot of issuers' websites. Oh, and model marketplace. So yeah, so that's one thing. I can switch back to the platform. So we created a model marketplace here for the advisor community, as advisors are moving more and more towards using outsourcing asset management and using models. We wanted to create a place where they can come and kind of filter through that universe by their different objectives and find models that are out there. In this case, right now we have Wisdom Tree, Wilshire, Fidelity. We're in the process of adding several more. So if you haven't heard from me yet, you probably will hear. And what it allows the advisor to do is directly pull any of the portfolios into that portfolio analysis tool and very quickly do their diligence on a model. And we at ETF Logic, we don't do any of the implementation or any of the trading. We would simply pass them along to you at the issuer. So it's a great kind of marketing strategy for ETF issuers. Gets a lot of advisor eyeballs, and it's growing. So I should probably try to be one of the first providers on there.
Yeah, definitely. To speak on the success that we've had with our providers, we've handed a couple of leads off to some of them that have their models listed, and then I think there's going to be even more lead generation opportunities as we're growing our advisor audience. We're engaging with them on webinars, video content, ebooks, things like that. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity on the marketing side for them, to get your models out, get exposure to our audience, and get advisors interested in using model portfolios.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, Lindsay. So for ETF issuers who are watching this video, how can they get in touch with you to get started on the platform, list their models?
Yeah, so I'm easy. I'm just Lindsay, Lindsey, at etflogic.io. Also, for listening to this today, I would give you a free trial of the platform if you wanted to try it out.
To access that free trial, you can go to app.logically.finance/sign up and use the code issuer 2020, and that will give you the enterprise access